We do record these. If you miss one, you can get on. They're on our Right Now Media page. If you don't know how to get to our Right Now Media page, the instructions are on the bulletin. So get a bulletin, that little piece of paper that's up front, or on an email. You can check out any of the ones you missed up to a certain point. We just started recording them a few weeks ago. So we are through day 6. Any insights? Anything that stood out to you? 6 days of creation.
Well, last week we were at the planetary or Lowell's Observatory.
Okay.
And we watched several, I don't know, vignettes or whatever.
Mhm.
And all of them said how the universe is still growing and expanding. And they're researching how galaxies are still moving out there.
Yeah.
Right. So I just thought, oh yeah, we're still right in the 6th day.
Yeah.
Still
That's right.
creating and
Still moving, right? And it's a big world. Yeah.
yeah, they're trying to prove the other.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. Yeah. Yeah. Science proves God every time. It cannot be disproved. What was the comment after the 6th day? It was very good, right? I saw a quote from John Wesley that was really good. It says, "It was good, for it is all agreeable to the mind of the Creator. Good, for it answers the end of its creation. Good, for it is serviceable to man, whom God had appointed Lord of the visible creation. Good, for it is all for God's glory. There is that in the whole visible creation, which is a demonstration of God's being and perfections. Now all was made, and every part was good, but all together very good." Right? Each part is good. Each part is perfect. Each part is complete. But what happens when it all comes together and works like it should? It becomes very good. Like, if good is equal to perfect, I don't even know where you go from there, but that's God's goodness. What's better than good? I don't know, but I want some of that, right? And that's what happens when things work in God's good and perfect order. And that's where we start today, as we've been through 6. And what I want to do this morning is to read all of chapter 1 as a whole, because that's really how it's meant to be read, in poetry, in reflection, to grasp it as a whole. Because, right, it's not just about any one of the parts, it's about the whole parts together. And then we'll get through we'll work on day 7 today. So if I could get someone to read a day, we get several readers, someone read a day, and then someone else pick up the next day. And we'll just go through this for 7 times. Someone read day 1, or 1 through 4, and then someone else pick up on the next day. Let's just do that. Let's take this in as a whole this morning.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and earth. The earth was formless and empty, and darkness covered the deep waters. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw the light was good. Then he separated the light from the darkness.
And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and there was evening, and there was morning, one day. Then God said, "Let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the water." And God made the expanse, and separated the waters which were below the expanse from the waters which were above the expanse. And it was so. And God called the expanse heaven. And there was evening, and there was morning, the 2nd day.
God said, "I command the water underneath the sky to come together in one place, so there will be dry land." Things were happening. God named the dry land ground, and named the water the ocean. God looked at what had been done. God said, I command the earth to produce all kinds of plants, including fruit trees and grain. And that's what happened. It was produced all kinds of vegetation. God looked at what he had done, and it was good. Everything clean and then morning, and that was the third day.
Then God said, let there be lights in the firmament, the heavens, and divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and seasons, and for the days and years. And let them be the lights in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth. And it was so. Then God made two great lights. The greater light should rule the day, and the lesser light should rule the night. He made the stars also. He sent them into the firmament of the heavens and gave light on the earth. And to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. So the evening and morning there were the fourth day.
And God said, let the water teem with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the vault of the sky. So God created the great creatures of the sea and every living thing with which the water teems, and that moves about in it according to their kind, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them and said, be fruitful and increase in number, and fill the water in the seas, and let the birds increase on the earth. And there was evening and there was morning, the fifth day.
And God said, let the earth bring forth living creatures after their kind, cattle and creeping things and beasts of the earth after their kind. And it was so. God made the beasts of the earth after their kind, and the cattle after their kind, and everything that creeps on the ground after its kind. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, let us make our own man and our woman according to our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it, and rule over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the sky, over every living thing that moves on the earth. Then God said, behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the surface of the earth, and every tree which has fruit yielding seed. It shall be your food. And to every beast of the earth, and every bird of the sky, and everything that moves on earth, which has life, I have given every green plant for food. It is so. God saw that all he had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning of the sixth day.
Wow. One more. Someone go through 3.
Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day, God finished his work that he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all of his work that he had done. So God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it God rested from all his work that he had done in creation.
You got good. Man, but just reading that just solidifies that in our mind. And hallelujah, we made it to chapter 2. We've been on this for 2 months. It is right. It's not real simple, is it? Right? There's a lot of things going on here, and we don't want to miss it. And honestly, if we really wanted to dive in, we could have spent double that easy to get into that. And but I think we've got the significant things at least to start understanding this, and to see what God is doing. What was the imagery of the number 7? What's the importance of that significance? Completeness, right? 7 throughout all Hebrew literature is it speaks of complete, of being finished. right? And what was he says, he starts with, and God finished, right? That's part of what he does. Verse 1 and 2 both say, thus the heavens and the earth were completed or finished, depending on your translation. And then verse 2, by the seventh day, God finished the work he started off to do. We talked about this a little bit. What's missing from day 7?
Oh, well, he had stopped, he was
Yeah.
doing the Sabbath.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Rested on the seventh.
He's resting. There's been a pattern up to this day, though. There was something that was said. And it's missing. What? It was good or it was finished. Right? There's no end to day 7.
But just like she said this morning, he's still working and
He's-
making universes changing.
He is still, you're right. He is still working. Day 7 doesn't have an end to it. And as I see it, as I understand it, the rest of the Bible is a continuation of God's rest. And what I hope we hear today and understands that God's rest has no end. Write that down if you're a note taker, because that's the most important thing that we can come away with today with. God's rest has no end because it is good. So let's talk about that word rest. What does that mean? Huh? Stop. In the very literal translation, it means cease. So stop's a good translation. What else? What is God's rest? What is rest in general in biblical terms? Replenishing, absolutely. Absolutely. Anyone know what the Hebrew word for rest is? Shabbat. What is that? What do we know from that word? Sabbath. Peace. Wholeness. All right. So that's good. Rest is Shabbat, was the root word where we get Sabbath, and it literally means to stop or to cease. But the idea is, what does it mean for God to rest? You think he's tired? You think he's wore out? You know, like us having to work on a Saturday. I work 6 days. I need to. No? Was that not it? Okay, so, and he does that, doesn't he? He looks at everything. He admires his own handiwork, which is awesome. And he sees how good it is, right? He had finished the work he had been doing. So on the 7th day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the 7th day, made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. And he looks at it, and it's good, and he reflects and he admires and he dwells in completion, because to God, completion is what is good. And when things are not complete, that's where something needs to happen. Something needs to intervene to get us back into the good. Where, you know, as we think about rest as Shabbat, where else in the Bible do we see or hear about the Sabbath? Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. Yeah. The command, right? Was this a suggestion? No. This was a command. And what does it mean to keep the Sabbath day holy? To keep it for God. Okay. What does that mean to you? It is a reflection. It is. Yeah. So what we'll find is Sabbath, being rest, to cease, now is connected with kadosh. That's the Hebrew word for holy. And what holiness is in a nutshell, it is to be set apart, but it's set apart in purity, or as blameless. Holiness becomes an image of perfection also in God. And this connection between rest and holiness is made here. And he says it in Genesis 2. All right, then God blessed the seventh day and God made it holy. There's a holiness. There's something set apart about this day with significance. And we're invited into God's rest. And when we're invited into God's rest, we trust that he will meet our needs, right? Because if we're resting, something needs to happen to make sure that we have what we need here today. And that's going to play itself out over that. So when we think about rest and the land and Sabbath, we think about everything that gets to rest. We're gonna go to Leviticus here in just a minute, and we're gonna see what all rests on a Sabbath year. But God rests, and he invites his creation to rest in the same way for the same purpose. Because just think about a time of farmers and cultivators, right? You are honoring a land that doesn't belong to you. Does any one of us own land? Right? Truly, we might have a little piece of paper with our name on it that says we own some land. Did we do anything to create that land? To bring forth that land? To vegetate the vegetation? No, absolutely not. Right? We're honoring a land that God has blessed us with. And in honoring the land, we're not praising the land, right? But we're praising the creator who created the land, right? And that's what it means to rest. And there's gratitude that's connected to rest. Why is it that creation can rest?
God is in control.
Because it does, right? It was created, and guess what? The creation obeys. It's obedient, and it's God's good order, and it keeps working the way it's supposed to. And because of that, creation can rest. Let me ask you this. How does chaos affect God's rest?
Force it.
Huh?
It will force it.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is if we do not rest, there's been scientific studies done over and over that if we do not rest, our bodies will literally have chaos.
Yeah.
You will have health problems.
That's it.
You know, and from man's point of view, we think we're blessed if we work 7 days a week and we get that extra parcel of land, that bigger house, those nicer cars. You know, here in this, it says that he blesses this. We don't see that any rest. We see that he blesses it because that rest is so important to God.
That's right.
Because if we don't do it ourselves, he's going to do it to us.
Right.
And we don't want that. That's why we have coronary problems.
Yeah.
You know, we have health issues.
It is. We can invite chaos into God's creation by not observing this. And you're right. It plays itself out time and time again. Flip to Leviticus 25. Oh, yes, I am. Absolutely. I'm going to read 1 through 7 in Leviticus 25.
The Lord spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, saying, "Speak to the people of Israel and say to them, when you come into the land that I give you, the land shall keep a Sabbath to the Lord. For 6 years you shall sow your field, and for 6 years you shall prune your vineyard and gather in its fruits. But in the 7th year there shall be a Sabbath of solemn rest for the land, a Sabbath to the Lord. You shall not sow your field or prune your vineyard. You shall not reap what grows of itself in your harvest, or gather the grapes of your undressed vine. It shall be a year of solemn rest for the land. the Sabbath of the land shall provide food for you, for yourself, and for your male and female slaves, and for your hired worker and the sojourner who lives with you, and for your cattle and for the wild animals that are in your land, all its yield shall be for food.
What gets to rest in a Sabbath? So what is the Sabbath year? Let's talk about that. Huh? Not quite the Jubilee. It's just the 7th year, not the 49th year. So just the Sabbath year itself. What's the command? Let it rest for how long? How much trust is required from us to not plan anything on that 7th year? A lot. God is inviting us to trust him that his perfect creation is good and that he will do what he will say he will do and that he will meet our needs so that we can have rest. What gets to rest during this Sabbath year?
On that land.
Which is what? Okay, so that the land gets to rest, the crops get to rest. What else rests? The animals get to rest, the workers get to rest, and the owner gets to rest. Like, so God's rest is just any one thing. God's rest is everything that's required. Why is that important for all those things to get to rest? What happens if you work your animal too hard? Yeah, they die. What happens if you plant too often on a field? You deplete the nutrients in the soil. Everything is affected when we don't allow God's rest to take place. And then things start operating in a way that they were never meant to operate, right? You might still get a crop, but what will be wrong with that crop? Yeah. Will there be any nutrients coming out of that stuff that you're growing? Absolutely not. It might look right, but it's not right. And that's what we start seeing when we stop following what the patterns that God has seen. There might be things that kind of look good, but what we find is there's no nutrient there. There's no real value there. And it's a shell of what God has created. And we start seeing that when things like rest aren't taken, being obedient to. So after 7 of these Sabbaths, what happens? 7 of these Sabbath cycles, it's the year of Jubilee, right? In the year of Jubilee, it says, count off, it's this verse 8 right there in 25, count off 7 Sabbath years, 7 times 7 years, so that the 7 Sabbath years amount to a period of 49 years. Then have the trumpet sounded everywhere on the 10th day of the 7th month, on the Day of Atonement. Sound the trumpet throughout your land. Consecrate the 50th year and proclaim liberty throughout the land to all its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you. Each of you is to return to your family property and to your own clan. The 50th year shall be a jubilee for you. Do not sow and do not reap what grows of itself or harvest the intended vines, for it is a jubilee and is to be holy for you. Eat only what is taken directly from the fields. In this year of Jubilee, everyone is to return to their own property. Right? So how many years do you trust the land in this year, in this cycle? 3 years. 3 years. You're supposed to rely on God's provision. You think relying on God for 1 is hard, but the trust required for 3, but God provides. And he says, I'm going to give you such an abundance in the year before that you're just going to be overflowing with abundance of what you will need for the next 3 years. And what's the purpose of the Jubilee? Redemption. Oh, that's a good word. That's a really good word. What does that mean, Kelly?
Everything goes back to the way it's if they've lost their land or have become a slave, they are redeemed and they get reset.
It's the ultimate reset, isn't it? It's things were good. God created in a good, perfect way. Things, for whatever reason, got out of line, got out of whack. And in this moment, God is putting things back. This is the ultimate Sabbath. This is the Sabbath of all Sabbaths. This is the putting things that have gone wrong back to right, to be made right, to be made whole, right? And it's all about healing. It's about restoration. It's about justice. It's making things new again. It's bringing things back into their created order. What's unfortunate is it's never been documented where the Jubilee was ever celebrated by the Israelite people, which is a little heartbreaking of what God was trying to do. And maybe it was, and just we don't know about it. But this is the perfect getting back to the way God created. Body, mind. What happens when we don't rest? Is it just our body that's affected?
It's our mind.
It's our mind. It sure is, right? And that could be even worse than not giving your body a rest and not letting it reset. Ground, our animals, everything in creation needs to rest. The sacrificial system was meant to bring God's rest. It was that way to make things right again. When things had got out of line and out of whack, the sacrificial system was instituted to bring back the order, but it wasn't quite successful. So how was the order reestablished? Jesus. So there's a Sunday school answer. Love it. That's right. Number one answer. Jesus is the ultimate setting of reorder, right? Think about this. What was the two words in day 7 that we talked about? It is what? What did Jesus say on the cross when he breathed his last breath? He said, "It is finished." Do you think that has some connection to Genesis 1? Genesis 2? It is finished. It is back to the way that God created. Now, does that mean everything will be perfect after the cross? Not yet, right? It's coming. We're not there yet. Ephesians talks about that, and just that it's we're in the right now, but the not yet moment. But one day, right? Revelation 21 and 22, everything will be right again. And we look forward to that, and we anticipate that. But yeah, Jesus breathed his last breath. It is finished. Well, let me ask you this. How did Jesus find rest on the Sabbath? He watch the football game and take a nap?
He usually went away.
He went away. Was that on the Sabbath? Okay, he went to the synagogue. Okay, let's look at that. Luke 14. Let's go to the synagogue. Luke 4:14. I think I said that wrong. Luke 4:14. I think I said 14. Luke 4:14. I'm going to read 14 to 21.
Jesus returned to Galilee in the power of the Spirit. News about him spread to the whole countryside. He taught in their synagogues, and everyone praised him. He went to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and on the Sabbath day he went into the synagogue as was his custom, and he stood up to read. The scroll of the prophet Isaiah was handed to him. When opening it, he found the place where it is written. To where?
Verse 21.
The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners, and recovery of sight for the blind, to release the oppressed, to proclaim the year of the land. Favor.
2:21. Yeah.
Then he rolled up the scroll, gave it back to the attendant, and sat down. The eyes of everyone in the synagogue were fastened on him. And he began by saying to them, "Today the scripture is fulfilled."
So Jesus comes to bring back, and what does he say he's fulfilling?
The year of the Lord's favor.
The year of the Lord's favor. What else? What's he bringing? Liberty? This is Jubilee language. This is Leviticus 25 Jubilee. That no one that had ever recognized that it had been observed. But guess what? Jesus is bringing Jubilee, right? Sight to the blind, freedom for the prisoners, recovery, healing, proclaiming the year of the Lord's favor. That's Jesus's purpose.
And the good news.
And the good news. He is the good news, right? Right? Luke and others, they show Jesus walking and living out Jubilee everywhere that he goes. He is taking things that have gone wrong and he makes them right. I think about, he often dealt with leprosy, and I think about cancer, right? Cells that have mutated into ways that they were never meant to do. And yet when God heals, he is making those right again. Be whatever affliction they're coming to. Blindness, right? Was blindness the way God created? No. But something went wrong. And yet when Jesus touches the blind man, he makes it right again. When Jesus touches someone, that is a creative work. Something had went wrong, and God through Jesus, touches them and makes it right. He is creating in that moment. And he proclaims release. Jesus brings the ultimate seventh-day Sabbath. And what he calls it the kingdom of God. This is the kingdom. All right, let's look at one more in Luke. Luke 13. Luke 13:10. What is Jesus always accused of doing on the Sabbath? Healing. He's not watching football. He's not taking his Nazarene nap. He's out healing. And what's the problem? Why does everyone find a problem with this? Huh? They're calling it work, aren't they? Did Jesus see healing someone as work? How does he see it? Restoring. He's like, I'm not doing work. I'm doing the will of my Father, which is to restore. Things that aren't resting need to find rest, and I can bring rest. Everywhere that I go, I bring rest. Someone read Luke 13:10 through 17.
Now he was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath, and behold, there was a woman who had a disabling spirit for 18 years. She was bent over and could not fully straighten herself. When Jesus saw her, he called her over and said to her, "Woman, you are freed from your disability." And he laid his hands on her, and immediately she was made straight, and she glorified God. But the ruler of the synagogue, indignant because Jesus had healed on the Sabbath, said to the people, "There are 6 days in which work ought to be done. Come on those days and be healed, and not on the Sabbath day." Then the Lord answered him, "You hypocrites, does not each of you on the Sabbath untie his ox or his donkey from the manger and lead it away to water it? And ought not this woman, a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan bound for 18 years, be loosed from the bond on the Sabbath day?" As he said these things, all the adversaries were put to shame, and all the people rejoiced at the glorious things that were done by him.
So look at verse 12. Does he tell her she's healed? What's he saying? She's free. Through sin, something was taking her captive. Something that was never meant to be there is there. Does he just heal her? No. He frees her. He restores her. How many years was she afflicted by this? 18 years. She had this affliction and God freed her. Liberty. Restoration. That's what Jesus is doing here. He releases her. He sees her broken body being held captive by death. He says, yeah, I could go take a nap, or I can do something about this. Jesus brings rest to this woman this day. It brings a new dynamic to rest that we don't generally think about. There is this part, yes, we do need to let our minds rest, our bodies rest, but we're also called to take the rest that we've been given and to deliver rest. That's what Jesus did everywhere he did. Look at every time when it says Jesus on the Sabbath, you'll probably either find him at the synagogue or he's going to be healing someone. Go read it. It's fascinating. This is what Jesus did. This is how Jesus found rest. And if Jesus found rest in this way, I think we're invited to do the same thing. I think we're invited to take the rest that we've been given and to allow that rest, that completeness, that wholeness to be brought to someone else's life that is not experiencing that rest. Jesus talks about sin in the same way. Sin is being corrupting. Sin is a distortion of God's good order. And anytime Jesus, he'll heal someone or he'll do something for someone, he'll say, go and sin no more, right? You've been given order. Now don't go back and create chaos where I've made order. Go live in the wholeness that you've been given. Go live in the shalom peace that I've given you. And he invites them into that. And that's what Jesus does. He brings little pockets of good cove creation wherever he goes, and he invites each and every person to take hold of that. Now they have a choice. They can receive that or not, right? But he is there and he is offering that to them. Jesus combats the chaos wherever he goes, and he invites his kingdom of priests, each and every one of us, to do the same. To combat the chaos everywhere that we go. And as we think about a day of rest, it becomes a day of setting things right. Now, can we help anyone else if we're exhausted, if we're overly tired, if we're not operating right? Absolutely not. Right? If I'm wiped out and worn down, I can't help anyone else. If Jesus were just so tired he couldn't open his eyes, he couldn't help anyone else. That was the mountain times. Does that mean it was on the Sabbath? Was Jesus the Sabbath? Rest and ceasing was on generally different days than everyone else celebrated the Sabbath. So why do we celebrate the Sabbath on Sunday? Yeah, that's our tradition, is because Jesus rose from the grave on Sunday. We celebrate on Sunday. Does Genesis 2 tell us which day to rest on? It sure doesn't. Huh? The seventh day. Now there is no way, there's no possible way you could trace back what that day was in Genesis 2. So people have chosen over the years on which day that will be. What day was that for the Hebrews? It was Saturday. The sixth day is Friday night to Saturday night, right? Day in that culture starts in the evening. So Friday night to Saturday night, and there's still those that celebrate on that cycle. Is there one that's more right than the other? No, for sure not. Right? There's no. It's in Colossians 2. Where we won't flip there, but it says that it doesn't matter which day you celebrate. But what does matter is that you do celebrate it. Pick a day. It doesn't matter.
Every day is holy,
Well, it should be, right?
every day.
Every day. And that's pretty essentially what Colossians 2:16 and 17, what Paul's talking about. As long as it's set apart for the Lord, right? There's some people that have to work on Sundays. Pastor Ken's in there working right now. Right? That doesn't mean that it's okay for him not to rest, right?
Well, Levi's worked on Sundays too.
That's right. Yeah. That's it. And sometimes pastors are the worst about taking rest. But what happens when we don't rest is we're not able and ready to bring rest. And I think that's what this is calling us to do the whole time. To rule becomes to invite rest into a culture around us that is not finding any rest. How much unrest do we have in our world today? So much unrest. What if we could just bring a little bit of rest into someone's life? Take something that is so wrong that has consumed them and bring a little bit of order into their life. What does that mean to them? It could mean everything. It could mean everything. But that's the Sabbath rest that we're talking about here. And God sanctified this day. God sanctifies this rest. God blesses this rest. And he says, this is good. This is the way. When you do this, you will be blessed. Let's think about that and rest. Yeah, for one, we got to cease. We got to stop. We got to be ready ourselves, but let's invite rest to everyone around us. Let's bring that wholeness to those that don't understand this wholeness. There's a quote from Walter Brueggemann that I love. And he says, Sabbath is the end of grasping and therefore the end of exploitation. Sabbath is a day of revolutionary equality in society. On that day, all rest equally, regardless of wealth or power or need. The keeping of Sabbath in heaven and on earth is a foretaste and anticipation of how the creation will be when God's way is fully established. Sabbath is an unspoken prayer for the coming of a new sanity shaped by the power and the graciousness of God. We look forward to a day where everything's right. But that day is not today. Go ahead.
I think you see a little bit of that in Exodus where the people are out in the wilderness and he provided the manna. But on the seventh day, gather what you need on the feast day, and don't try to save more than you need because it's not going to be.
So every day when you gather, how many days do you gather for?
6.
Yeah. You gather for that day, though. What happens if you gather for 2 days?
Worm food.
It goes to worm food, right? But on the 6th day, what happens? You get the double portion. That's true. That doesn't go to maggots, right? And it's so funny on that. I love that story. Thank you, Liz, for bringing.
I still tried it.
They did. They tried it, and guess what? The people that didn't gather enough, what happened to them? They still had enough. The people that gathered too much, what happened to them? Worm food, but they had enough, right? They had enough for that day. And it was the ultimate setting of things right. That's a perfect example of God's Sabbath. It's trusting God for what we need today. Lord, give us this day our daily bread. I can rest in that, right? I can rest knowing that God will provide for me today what I need. It is.
It's a trust issue.
Oh, this is getting good.
Why? When you're obedient.
It was one of the hardest lessons we learned as a young couple. Like we got a mortgage, we got a payment, we got kids. Like, how could I possibly give this money that I don't have? Like, we trusted it, and guess what? It worked every time. When we paid God first, the money was always there. It's trust, right? I trust that when I give to God, that He will take care of me. That's good. I can rest in that. And I can share that with someone else and let them find rest in that as well, of what God has done for me. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for your rest. We thank you for your good, perfect creation. Lord, you know all things. You know how things should work and were created to work, Lord, and I pray that you would reveal that to us today. Lord, may we be obedient to your created order. May we live in the way that you have called us to live. May we operate in the ways you have called us to operate. May we work as your image bearers, bringing your good order everywhere that we go. Lord, may we be just like you, Lord Jesus. May we bring little pockets of rest wherever we go, little pockets of wholeness wherever we go. Whoever we encounter, Lord, I pray today for an encounter with someone that needs to find your rest. Lord, give us an opportunity today to live into your rest. Lord, renew us mind, body, and spirit today. Lord, give us a reset. Restore us. That we would be ready for whatever you would put before us. I thank you for your order. I thank you for the way. I thank you that we can trust you with everything that we have, knowing that you will always come through. Thank you for inviting us into your rest. And for that, we say thank you. We are grateful. We love you. Lord, let us just sit in your rest. May we take this rest with you today and every day that we walk forth. We love you, Lord. I pray this in your name, Jesus. Amen.